Good morning, everyone. Today's learning is dedicated in memory of David ben Pinchas Martin, as well as Leah bas Faiva, Rabbi Yaakov Zvi ben David Aryeh, Tzivia bas Mordechai, Avram ben David Slavin, Shalom ben Yisrael Morris, Zipporah Feigle bas Reuven Baruch, Shalom ben Eli, Ben bas Faiva, from Shoshana bas Yaakov Shmuel, Caleb Bela bas Henach, Yirmiyahu Yechiel ben Chava Moshe Eliezer, Sarah Malka bas Binyamin. Wish each and every one of their respective families long life and only simchas. So we're just waiting for a few more people to come on since I started so punctually. Morning, David. Morning. We were back in shul. It's fantastic to be back in shul. And please God, from here on in, we are looking forward to only growth and expansion in the services and in the engagement with the community in the physical sense. What was I going to say? Yes, tonight we have the third part of our well-being seminar, and we have a professional trainer, PT, who will be able to advise us from the comforts of his home why we should be doing physical exercise, how much physical exercise, who should be doing it, when should you be doing it, and what you can do even when you're at home. So I'm looking forward to investigating and questioning him this evening. Please join me this evening. We're just waiting for a couple more people before we start. Okay, so yesterday we were discussing about the fact that we discussed about Lashon Hara, right? You may recall that we were discussing about Lashon Hara and the pitfalls of Lashon Hara. We live in a world, the post-truth world they speak about since 2016, and the people, we think nothing of making throwaway comments and statements, despite the fact that a disparaging remark and comment can be devastating. They say the pen is mightier than the sword. Well, if that is true of the pen, then it is certainly true of the mouth. The greatest, I think, the greatest weapon that we have, or the greatest potency, are our mouths, which can be used, as with anything, for good or for bad. A compliment, a positive remark can build somebody's confidence, can build worlds, and the opposite is just as true. You say something negative, it can have a devastating impact on that person, their self-esteem, their belief, and God forbid, if a person's in a bad way, it can have it can lead to that person taking drastic action, which would be a tragedy. So therefore, Lashon Hara is something, when we approach Lashon Hara, which we approach with tremendous caution. We should be careful and cautious and tread with great caution in terms of the way that we speak and what we hear. I remember one of my teachers in school, and you're going to laugh at this. Good morning to all those that are still joining us, Peter, David, Mervyn, Powell. And you may recall, I don't know if Mervyn had this when he was in school, but they used to say that the reason, what is the purpose of this little part, the earlobe, right at the bottom? And I don't know if there's some truth, but they said the idea is that it is able to go up over your ear, and therefore it is to remind us that there are times where our ears should be closed and not to necessarily hear, to filter everything that we hear and that goes into our heads. And I remember the story of the Chofetz Chaim, who wrote Shmiras HaLashon, springs to mind. The Chofetz Chaim was the greatest sage for many decades pre-war. We're talking about up to the 1930s. And although he wrote many great works, what he considered his most important work, funnily enough, was a volume which is called Shmiras HaLashon, about safeguarding the way we speak. And he was hard of hearing. He would live to over 100, and he refused to have hearing aids, even though they were available. And the reason why, he said, was because, thank God, this was an opportunity for him to filter and to ensure that most things he wouldn't be able to hear, and therefore he wouldn't have to hear any Lashon Hara. So the analogy they always give, and we've heard many bat mitzvah girls give it, is that if you take a pillow and you take it up to the top of the tower, okay, and then you rip open the pillow on a windy day and you let all the feathers out of this bag, and then as they they tumble down towards the ground, the wind will blow them in all directions. Then if somebody were to come and tell you, now go and try and pick them up, it'll be an impossible task. So it is the Lashon Hara, the things that we say, it is like a runaway horse. Once it has been said, once that detrimental comment has been said, even if it is something that is true, you have said something negative, and therefore it has a long-term damaging impact to the other person. That is why, just so you should be aware, I remember when I was learning in studying law, the laws of defamation. Why do people get such huge amounts, mouth-watering sums for of damages, for compensation for the defamatory statement that was made? And the higher profile the individual and the more public that statement was said, the greater the defamation damages. And the reason is because once those words have been said, there is no way of taking them back. You can't retract. We all know there's. I remember watching one of my favorite movies is A Few Good Men. I don't know if anyone joins with me in that, but I do like the action in the courtroom. And sometimes one of the things that they did, and it's a tactic and strategy that is used, is the prosecution or defense will make a statement which they know is not going to be acceptable in the court of law, but they will make that statement in front of the witness. The judge will then, after the defense will say objection, the judge will then say sustained, and the prosecution will then be forced to retract that statement. But it's a game, because once that statement has been made and everyone sees the reaction of the defendant or the witness, then the damage has been done. And therefore, despite the fact that there is that objection and then it's retracted, at the end of the day, that statement has been said. And it's the same with Lashon Hara. Even if you turn around and afterwards you say, I didn't mean it, or it was just a joke, or everyone's saying it, or it's true, it doesn't matter. The long-term impact and damage is tremendous. So let me go through a few. I have to tell you that I was, sometimes you wonder, are we getting anywhere? I'm speaking to a screen. Am I making any difference? Is there any point in any of this? Somebody anonymously, well, not so anonymously, but somebody wrote to me yesterday saying that they had heard what I was saying, and they had actually held themselves back on, I think it was 5 or 6 occasions, being careful and guarding the way that they spoke, stopping themselves speaking Lashon Hara. And you know what? I was so inspired. I was so touched, because at the end of the day, when we come before the Almighty, if we can say that we have tried to hold ourselves back from what we have said, or the facial expressions even, which sometimes can be just as damaging, right? That is humongous. That is, we are transcending our physical natural selves of the way we would behave, and we are controlling ourselves. To be in control ourselves that's what Malachim, that's what celestial beings do. That's what we're expected to do. So it is Lashon Hara, even if it is true, even if a listener pressures the speaker to tell it, even if names are left out, even if it's about the speaker's family, right? So if I were to speak, God forbid, badly about a member of my family, and I can say, well, it doesn't matter, it's my son, it's my daughter, I'm just telling a funny story, it's still Lashon Hara. And I have to tell you, that hearing that has made me sit up and think. I have to be careful the way I speak about my kids, even though they may think that the story was funny. If it's a disparaging, detrimental statement or comment for the sake of a laugh, then it's unacceptable. Any derogatory comment is unacceptable, even about oneself. I think it was the Chofetz Chaim again that once said something to diminish his stature. And he said, I just realized that I spoke Lashon Hara about myself. You can't even put yourself down. You can't even make a statement that is derogatory about yourself, because that as well is Lashon Hara. But one of the greater dangers, I think, is avak Lashon Hara. We said it's like the dust of Lashon Hara. And what it is it's an innocent looking statement, sometimes a very positive statement. And what happens is that that innocuous statement, which is could be a praise, could be a compliment, it provokes a response. And you know that when you make such a statement, it is likely or potentially likely that somebody is going to react. So if I say, for example, I don't know, who should I pick on today? I'm not going to pick on anyone because it could lead to Lashon Hara. But let's just say that I said about, I'm not going to use any names because otherwise somebody could think or even say something. But let's say I said about Boris Johnson. Okay, Boris Johnson is a phenomenal, and by the way, the laws don't apply to non-Jews. So, but not that we should do it, but it doesn't apply in the same way. So let's say Boris Johnson, he's a phenomenal, and I do think a phenomenal leader. He's doing a great job, right? And I don't just say, you know, he's doing a solid job. He's doing a great job and a great speaker. I'm inviting somebody to say, well, actually, I don't think he is. So, of course, we can give compliments. But when we make statements which are provocative in that they are so out there, so outrageous in a sense, or so exaggerated, then there is a likelihood that somebody is going to respond or react by making a derogatory statement. So that is what Avat Lashon Hara is. It leads one minute. Okay, sorry about that. Getting the door. So again, in situations which inevitably provoke someone to contradict praise, such as in excess or in front of the subject's enemy or in public. Secondly, it leads to harm, such as recounting someone's generous character, when a listener might take advantage of the subject's goodwill. I remember, I don't think any of you were there, so I can say the story. I hope it won't get back. I remember being at a simcha, a Woodside Park simcha. It was quite a, how should we put it? It was quite a large simcha, and then they pulled out all the stops, and I spoke about, you know, I was standing with somebody and I was saying, what an incredible simcha, what a beauty, you know, all the attention to details, incredible. They've thought about their guests, you know, and gone to the every nth degree. And I remember waxing lyrical about the simcha and about the Baal Simcha, and all of a sudden, the person I was standing with, just, you could see they were becoming green with envy, and it led to them reacting adversely, negatively, and making a disparaging remarks about the host. Well, they're only doing it because they want to show off, right? Now, they did wrong, but I'm the one who's also did wrong. I set that person up. I created the scenario by making, recounting someone's generous character to such a degree in front of a third party, which would invite them to make a disparaging remark and to be critical. So we have to be careful about whenever we're speaking about a third party, to make sure that it's not going to invite the other person to knock or to be critical or to be jealous and to make a disparaging statement. Now, there is an exception to an often quoted or misquoted exception. And that is, and listen very carefully because it's relevant to the current situation, and that is what we call a to'eles. To'eles means, or to'elet, which means when there is a benefit, when it is of assistance. So I'm going to give you a scenario. Let's speak about a real one, okay? Let's say that there is a shop in town, and there is a shop in town that has been deemed to be selling produce which is of poor quality, right? Then it would be correct for those that are aware of it, let's say the Beth Din, to make a statement and to warn buyers if there is a problem not to buy there, or to be careful and cautious when buying it, because otherwise you're putting a stumbling block in front of the blind. If you have information and somebody else doesn't know about it, right, and they're going to come and do a deal, or they're going to go into business with someone, and you know that person is dishonest or is deceptive, or their goods are shoddy, if you don't say and you're holding that information, that power, then you are doing something terribly wrong. So that means that we have to be measured in what we say. But for example, when we speak about when people ask information, let's say if somebody's going out with somebody else and they say, do you know the family? Right? So if you know something about the family of this boy or this girl, and there is a real factor which is of concern, right? The father is a wanted murderer, then it would be something that you would have to let on. If it is something that is not likely to have any impact or it's not a serious matter, then you don't need to say. But there are instances, limited instances, where you should, not that you can, but you must come forward and tell the person what ostensibly would be considered Lashon Hara, to protect and to safeguard them from a danger. Okay, so that is all we are going to do today on Lashon Hara, and that takes us up to Psalm of the day. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He causes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the path of righteousness for his name's sake. Even when I walk in the valley of darkness, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You set a table before me in the presence of my adversaries. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. May only goodness and kindness pursue me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord for the length of days. Memorial prayer. Adon Elamim Zacho Es Nishmais. David ben Pinchas Martin, Leah Bat Spaiva, Rabbi Yaakov Tzvi ben David Aryeh, Tzivia Pat Mordechai, Ram ben David Slavin, Shon ben Yisrael Morris, Tzipera Fegel Bas Vivim Barshan ben Eli ben Bas Spaiva from Moshe Shana Bas Yaakov Shmuel, Kela Bela Bas Henach, Yirmiyahu Yechia ben Echav Moshe Eliezer, Sarah Malka Bas ben Yom Shalchu, Lilaman Began Eden Temenu Chosam, Lachem Balarachamim, Yasirein Veseisa Kanapa Bialamim, Yasabas Reis Shwasa Madina, Nachlasam, Yanuchu Bishlamish Kavam, then Amar Amen. ומי שבחב רומס ויעקב ושם דוד שלמה יברך ורפא זכילים בעבור שנים מספלים בעבורם בזכות הקדוש ברוך הוא ימלא רחמים עליהם לאחים ולפוסם ישלח להם פושלים ונשמעים לכל בהם בסוף שחר ישראל רפואת הנפש ורפואת הגוף השתבח זמן קריב ונאמר amen. Wishing everyone well. Fascinating to learn these important critical lines to ensure that speech, which is something we use or misuse every single day, that we are now have a heightened sensitivity and awareness, and we'll make sure that we maintain the highest standards in our speech. I'm going to put up now the flyer for tonight so that you're able to see it and hopefully attend this evening, half an hour